I'm Jim Commandant, and I'm with the Simcoe Muskoka Graphology Association. This is lesson number 5, Slants. Slant reveals the degree to which you express your real emotional feelings to others. It does not indicate to what degree you have feelings, but to what degree you will express your real emotions. In this lesson, we will concentrate on the following slants in a person's handwriting: extreme right slant, moderate right slant, vertical slant, moderate left slant, extreme left slant, and variable slant. Each one of these slants will give you an idea about the writer, and each one has a very distinct meaning. In order to determine slant in graphology, we use a protractor, as mentioned in Lesson 1, Graphology Basic Information. Protractors can be purchased in inexpensive math kits, sometimes sold separately, or you can download a picture from the internet and print it on an overhead projection sheet and use it. Each slant has its very own unique descriptions, along with a greater detail of characteristics about that particular slant. These brief, unique descriptions of various slants are as follows. The right slant represents compliance. The vertical slant represents self-reliance. And the left slant represents defiance. Each one of these slants also represents a period of time the writer is most comfortable with. The right slant is associated with the future. The vertical slant is associated with the present. And the left slant is associated with the past. Each one of these slants indicates how he deals with his real emotions. The right slant, the writer expresses his real emotions. The vertical slant, he represses his real emotions. That is, he represses his real emotions. He neither expresses or suppresses his feelings. And the left slant, the writer suppresses his real emotions. That is, he thinks one thing but says another. These slants also indicate the following interpretations of the writer. The right slant, positive. The vertical slant, neutral. And the left slant, negative. Extreme right slants. These are any angles under 55 degrees, and you would see this on the right-hand side of the protractor. The sample shown is an example of an extreme right slant. The one below is the same sample but with red indicators illustrating this extreme right slant. If you were to use a protractor, you would find the angles of these red highlights to be in the range of an extreme right slant. Characteristics of an extreme right slant writer. The further to the right your slant is, the more emotional you are. You're hysterical. Extreme outbursts of emotion. Laughs or cries at the drop of a hat. And his reactions would cause others to stop and look at him. Moderate right slants are any angles from 85 to 55 degrees, and again would be seen on the right-hand side of the protractor. The sample shown is an example of a moderate right slant. The one below is the same sample but with red indicators illustrating this moderate right slant. If you were to use a protractor, you would find the angles of these red highlights to be in the range of a moderate right slant. Characteristics of a moderate right slant writer. Feelings of being demonstrative, affectionate, and passionate. He reaches out to others. He moves ahead. He forgets himself and looks favorably towards the future and its outcome. Not afraid to let others see how he feels. He can hold back emotions when it is appropriate, waiting for the right time to express them. Sociable and enjoys meeting and being around others. He energizes himself through the interaction with others. Impulsive, spontaneous, and people who tend to write like this are called extroverts. Vertical slant. These are any angles from 95 to 85 degrees, and you will notice this by looking at the protractor straight up and down. The sample shown is an example of a vertical slant. The one below is the same sample but with red indicators illustrating this vertical slant. Again, if you were to take a protractor and check the red slants, you would find that they are all in the range of being a vertical slant. Characteristics of a vertical slant writer: self-control, reserve, independence, reason over emotion, that is, head over heart, individualistic nature, independence of mind, lack of spontaneity, considers all the consequences before he acts on his feelings, associated with diplomacy, stays on top of all things, and it is one of the most difficult slants to make, as it takes the most physical, mental, and emotional control. Moderate left slant. These are all angles from 120 to 95 degrees and can be seen on the left-hand side of the protractor as illustrated. The sample shown is an example of a moderate left slant. The one below is the same sample but with red indicators, illustrating this moderate left slant. Characteristics of a moderate left slant writer. Thinks one thing and says another. Leans over backward to avoid an emotional situation. Does what is best for himself. Often found among people who have important professional or social responsibilities. Not influenced by their personal and subjective aspects of their emotion in order to reach their objectives. Opposition to authority. Rebellious nature. Can be found in the handwriting of adolescents who rebel against school discipline and family authority, and also among hypersensitive people who cannot accept the world as it is, with instincts for self-preservation, which produces defiance and a refusal to consider anything new or unfamiliar. Extreme left slants. These are all angles over 120 degrees and are found on the extreme left of the protractor, as illustrated in the picture. The sample shown is an example of an extreme left slant. The one below is the same sample but with red indicators illustrating this extreme left slant. Characteristics of an extreme left slant writer. He keeps his emotions to himself. The further to the left, the more he hides his true feelings. Can be explosive about superficial matters. Extreme withdrawn. He can be compared to a catapult being stretched to the limit. When it is released, there is no telling what may happen. And one note, Timothy McVeigh, the Oklahoma City bomber, wrote in this fashion. The sample shown is an example of a variable slant. Again, the one below is the same sample but with red indicators illustrating these variable slants. If you'll notice that the slants go in all different directions. In this particular sample, we have a combination of an extreme left slant, a vertical slant, and a moderate right slant, all in the same handwriting. Characteristics of a variable slant writer. Lack of control over the expression of his emotions. To be emotionally unstable. Hard to get along with. And the more variable the slants, the more unstable the writer is. The best letters to determine slant are as follows. It's the upper part of these letters, which we call the upper zone. would be the B, the D, the F, the H, the K, the L, and the T. For our example of determining slant, we will focus on the letter L. Looking at the picture, you can see that the letter you want to determine the angle, in this case the letter L, you place the protractor with the bottom line indicated with the letter A and the arrow, also known as the 0 or 180 line, directly below that letter. Then follow up the protractor to see what angle crosses the middle of the letter. In this case, it is a 72-degree angle. The red mark in the picture is only there for the sake of convenience. For this particular letter, we have determined that the angle of the letter L is a moderate right angle. When doing a full analysis of a sample, you would measure several letters that have the upstroke, being the B, D, F, H, K, L, and T, to determine their angles. Bring all of this data together, and you now can determine the angles in the handwriting. Sometimes you will have no loops in the letters for the B, D, F, H, K, L, or T, as we have shown in the previous sample with the letter L. These letters could be a stick formation or a retraced formation rather than a loop. The following is an illustration of the stick formation on the left and a retraced formation of the letter T on the right. In this particular case, where there are stick or retraced formation, there is no loop to follow up the protractor to determine the measurement of the slant. The following will illustrate how you would determine the slant of the stick figure and the retraced letter T. In the case of the stick figure T, you place the letter on the bottom line of the protractor, as we did with the letter L, and follow up the T stem, that is the stick portion of the T, to determine the angle of the letter. In this case, the angle is 87 degrees, making this letter a vertical slant. In the case of the retraced figure T, again you place the letter on the bottom line of the protractor, as we did with the stick figure T, and follow up the T stem to determine the angle of the letter. In this case, the angle is 73 degrees, making this letter a moderate right slant. We will finish off this lesson looking at a very interesting angle for the letter D. The maniac D leans drastically to the right than any other letter in a word or words. The letter D is only one of a few letters that shows such a distortion. The maniac D stands for maniacal behavior. This is indicative of loss of mental and emotional control. The writer is someone who is suddenly pulled off balance and is very prone to explosive behavior. The more the D leans to the right, the more the writer is at the mercy of his emotional outbursts. The more frequent that this happens to the letters, the more often the writer will go off the emotional deep end. This trait is seen in the handwriting of some of the most notorious murderers. One such murderer is Steve Grogan, a member of the Charles Manson family. The following are two examples of the maniac D in the words wanted and Brad. I would now ask you to go to your CD that contains your assignments and print the one out for this lesson and complete it. After completing this assignment, you can scan it and send it to me at graphology@bell.net for marking. Or you can mail it to me at Simcoe Muskoka Graphology Association, 1 Quail Crescent, Unit 306, Barrie, Ontario, L4N6W9.